Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first in our series of AgrAbility National Training Workshop Encore webinars. Today is Farming with a Purpose, how the New Mexico AgrAbility Project supports individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities through adaptive apprenticeships. Our presenter today is Sophie Trusty from Mandy's Farm and the New Mexico AgrAbility Project. So AgrAbility is a USDA-sponsored program that assists farmers and ranchers and other agricultural workers with disabilities. It partners land-grant universities with disability service organizations. Currently, there are 21 state projects. The National AgrAbility Project is led by Purdue's Breaking New Ground Resource Center, and the partners include Goodwill of the Finger Lakes, the Osteoarthritis Action Alliance, AgriSafe Network, Colorado State University, and Washington State University. For more information, you can go to www.agrability.org. Our presenter today is Sophie Trusty. As I mentioned earlier, she joined Mandy's Farm as an AmeriCorps member in the Vocational Access and Meaningful Opportunities for Success program before moving into roles as program coordinator and program director, supporting the growth of the VAMOS and AgrAbility programs. Sophie holds a bachelor's degree in sustainable agriculture and food systems with an emphasis on community-based education and change. Prior to her work at Mandy's Farm, Sophie worked within a public school setting, supporting individuals with developmental disabilities for several years. All right, and with that, I am going to turn it over to you, Sophie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tess. And I appreciate everyone being here today and really excited to kick off the encore sessions with you all. So I am going to share my screen. Okay. So the title of today's presentation is Farming with Purpose, how the New Mexico AgrAbility Project supports individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities through adaptive apprenticeship. And this logo on the left-hand side of the goat, this was developed by our first team of apprentices in our apprenticeship program, and turned into this beautiful image that we now use. The folks at our program use this to make bandanas and t-shirts and other products that we're able to sell, and just kind of a source of pride for us. So today, I will be discussing the ins and outs of the program, and sharing about this model, which we believe is replicable across different states for those that might be interested in developing something similar, and how to provide more direct assistance to farmers with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I'll also discuss some of the funding sources that we utilize in the program and some of the techniques and tools that we use to enhance accessibility for farmers with cognitive disabilities. Hess already shared my bio, but I just love this picture of some of our past apprentices. That was not planned, by the way. We all showed up wearing the same gear that day, so pretty fun. So, how did the apprenticeship program come to be? Mandy's Farm, we are the nonprofit partner in the New Mexico AgrAbility Project. We have been a disability services provider since 2000, so this is our 25th anniversary year. We have a real farm. We actually have 2 real farms now. And our original design around the organization of Mandy's Farm was to provide supportive residential living services, originally just to women with autism. And so our original farm site was designed completely in mind with our founding family, the Robbins, and their daughter Amanda and what she really loves to do. And Mandy loves gardening, being outside, being with horses, being with animals. And so our original site has a beautiful garden, animal husbandry program. And so we had this agricultural site for many years, and started hearing more and more community need and interest around agricultural programming and how that intersects for folks with disabilities towards employment, for therapeutic purposes, for enjoyment. And we started to have discussions with some folks at the University of New Mexico around this alignment of resources that we had and the partners that were available. That led us to being approached to be the nonprofit partner in the New Mexico AgrAbility Project. And so our first cycle of USDA AgrAbility funding was 2018 through 2022. During that time, we began offering a part-time agricultural apprenticeship program that was much more informal, not with the kind of full-time structure and staffing needed, but just again, in that alignment of resources and community need and interests, and in that first cycle of the grant, developing what that was going to look like. So we did offer some agricultural training during that first grant cycle. During that time, I helped to develop a funding plan with the New Mexico Division of Vocational Rehabilitation to create a vocational training program providing agricultural apprenticeship to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That funding plan was approved in 2023, and we began our first full-time apprenticeship program February 2023. We then received our second cycle of USDA AgrAbility funding, which we're currently in the 2022 to 2026 cycle. We had our first group of full-time apprentices graduate this past December, and our second apprenticeship cohort began this past March. So a little bit about how the program is structured in the apprenticeship program. So we have 2 program managers who oversee daily operations in the program. They help make sure that the day is running smoothly, that folks have what they need, that the farm itself is operating well, and that the curriculum is being delivered to the apprentices. They keep the whole day floating. We also have our program assistants. We currently have 4 program assistants who their main job is to work directly with the apprentices in the program, provide any coaching as needed to be successful in the field as well as in the classroom part of the program. So they really help our apprentices to adapt to the day and be successful. In our first cycle of cohort, we had 7 graduates of the program, of the full-time program, and they are now in community employment placements. So another aspect of the apprenticeship program is that for the last several months of the program before they graduate, they receive intensive job development support, and that is a classification of supported employment, where we support them with getting placed in a community employment setting at the end of their apprenticeship. So we have folks now who graduated the program who are working out in the community. Right now, we have 6 apprentices currently enrolled in our second cohort cycle. And our apprentices are the folks that are learning and doing the program. They get to do all aspects of everything, and they receive a $600 monthly stipend for all of their work in the program. This picture shows our first group of apprentices and our staff, as well as some of the occupational therapy students that we work with. It is a 2-year apprenticeship program where apprentices complete 1,800 hours of combined instruction and field work. They receive that monthly stipend, and that is paid directly through the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. We are really lucky that another partner in the New Mexico AgrAbility Program is the University of New Mexico's occupational therapy team. The occupational therapy fieldwork 2 students completing their practicum have an option to choose Mandy's Farm AgrAbility Apprenticeship Program as their fieldwork placement. So we are often very lucky to have those OT students working with us for part of the program, and they get to really learn our apprentices and help provide assessments for them. And then, as I talked about a little bit, our apprentices are then supported to enter employment. So bottom left picture, we have some of our past apprentices doing a cooking lesson. And then top right, we have folks doing the garlic harvest. So we had harvested garlic and bringing it into cure. Year 1 in the agricultural apprenticeship program is heavily focused on the agricultural basics. It involves much more classroom instruction and getting really those basic skills down of working on a farm. So we have a curriculum that we have designed that takes folks through introductory level topics in agriculture. And so about half of their day in year 1 is devoted to that classroom time. In year 2, our apprentices are really encouraged to foster their independence and their skill sets by having a community internship placement 2 days a week. So we have formed a strong network of partners with other local farms here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so in their year 2, our apprentices get matched at one of those community farms for 2 days a week. It also helps them to develop their personal niche in agriculture. You know, agriculture is such a large field, and so this allows us to specialize a little bit more and lean into what the apprentices are really interested in. We found that 2 years makes sense for the population that we work with. The students and the apprentices in the program really benefit from increased repetition. So the ability to have 2 years to really gain those skills and get to repeat things, because farming is so seasonal. In just 1 year of a program, there are certain things on the farm life cycle that they might only have the opportunity to do once in that year, and year 2 allows them the opportunity to repeat that and practice that and gain more independence. Our year 2 folks also have an opportunity to have their own personal plot at our farm and grow what they would like to grow and really get more experience in running their own operation. And then we have a heavy focus on that job development towards the end of the program and getting folks connected to their next steps. So on this slide, we bottom left have one of our past apprentices. He is fixing some irrigation. In the middle, we have a photo of one of our apprentices doing some planting in a row. And then on the bottom right is a picture from one of the community farm internship sites where they were having a little end of season gathering. That also really helps our apprentices to gain further professional connections out in the field. And it's been a really great way for us to have more of that community tie-in as well. So some things that make us unique, I think, in our programming. We are very person-centered in our approach, and we are able to provide a lot of individualized support in the program through our staffing structure of having program assistants to be able to work really closely with our apprentices and help them to be successful. working with the University of New Mexico occupational therapy students is a huge benefit to the program. They have been able to support us with, suggestions of different assistive technology that would be helpful in providing those worksite assessments. Another partner in the New Mexico AgrAbility Program is the New Mexico Technology Assistance Program. That's another huge benefit, is being able to consult with them about assistive technology and adaptive equipment that would benefit our apprentices. And then we have a strong value at Mandy's Farm around paid work for folks with disabilities and intellectual disabilities, and that focus on transitioning our students out of the program and into community integrated employment. It can be, we're sometimes stretching the comfort zone of our folks. They get really comfortable being in the program and having that support. And so, it's something we're thinking about in this cohort, is how to really support that transition into those next steps. Some tools and ways that we integrate physical accessibility into the farm site, because many of our apprentices might also have a physical support need in addition to having an intellectual or developmental disability. Just some different examples of some tools that we've used. So the top left, one of those swivel stools that apprentices can take out into the field with them, and that helps with not having to get on and off kneeling all of the time and support the back a little bit. Top right is like a big foam mat. We encourage our folks to take those out to the field when we're doing a lot of weeding. Here in New Mexico, we also have lots of spiky weeds, so this helps with some protection as well. The bottom left picture shows our past apprenticeship group working on some accessibility improvements at the original garden site that we have. So this was their project that they wanted to do. They wanted to do it in this style, and we really wanted to encourage their independence in that project. So this was one of our apprentices' ideas, was to take pallets and pull apart the wood pieces from each pallet and then rehammer them together so that there were no longer gaps in between the wood. We put down gravel and landscaping fabric in these pallets, and we're able to create a pallet pathway throughout the garden for folks who use wheelchairs or other mobility supports to better access that garden space. And then the bottom right is another kind of adaptive tool that we encourage folks to bring out into the field with them. It can be used in the way that it's shown there, where the pad is on the top, and you can sit on that. You can also flip it around so that the pad is on the bottom, and you can use that to kneel and use the handles to get back up off the ground a little bit easier. So we keep kind of a library of accessible tools and equipment at the farm for folks to use. We also have a huge focus on cognitive accessibility at the farm. We work with folks with a wide range of literacy abilities, and so we try to be very mindful of that at the farm. We have a lot of visuals in place there. So on the left side of the screen, we have an example of, we were doing some vocabulary learning that day of different common farm vocab. So we've got rake, harvest, trellis, greenhouse, etc. on there. And for each vocabulary word, we also have a picture that goes with it. And we teach those vocabulary words so that our folks have more fluency in that verbiage. On the right-hand side of the screen shows what our farm task board looks like in the classroom at the farm. So every day we update this and go through this schedule with the apprentices before we start the day. So on the left-hand column, it says to do, and each row has a different item. Like the first one says prep zone 2 rows, and then a picture of what that looks like. Underneath it says plaster the greenhouse, and then a picture of that. I think at this point we pretty much have an image that goes with most farm verb or noun that you can think of. So we always have a visual next to the words. And then in the middle column, we have who's doing that activity. So every apprentice has their own name tag. So when we go through the schedule, folks are able to add their name to the area where they want to work first. This also really helps us with, again, encouraging that independence at the farm, and allowing that agency of, this is what I want to do today. This is where my interests are. And it gives that really clear visual and that routine of I've selected this task, this is what I'm working on. And then on the right-hand column is the done section. Like on that one, it says organize shelves. And so again, that clear visual process of, this thing is over with, we've completed it. So that helps all of us, I think, at the farm to just stay on track of what we're doing, and also just a tool for us to be more cognitively accessible in our space. Again, lots of visuals at the farm. So we have our tool wall here on the left. A little bit hard to tell in this picture, but next to every set of tools on the wall is a little card with the name of the tool and a picture of that tool. This year with our new apprentices, we also, I think it was our first day, we get into safety immediately. So our staff had a really wonderful idea of how to be really accessible in talking about tool safety and using visuals. So we had sort of a tool puppet show where staff, were behind a curtain, and students and the rest of the staff, we all sat in front of them, and each of us had 3 flags: a red flag, a yellow flag, and a green flag. And the staff presenting the tool would show us the tool and then get our input, and students could raise their flag if they thought, red, it's really more of a high level of a danger use for that tool, like a power saw, things like that. They could throw up a yellow if they thought, it's not the most dangerous, but it takes some being cautious, and a green flag if, like a pair of gloves or something, right? There's no safety risk involved in that. And so we try to really incorporate a lot of those visuals, a lot of those kinds of activities when we're learning, to be really accessible for our students. On the right hand, we have a picture. It says sweet potato, and it's got a sweet potato painted on it. We have images and labels in the field itself for every row, so that folks are able to really easily see what is being planted there. More on visuals and cognitive accessibility. We also, when we're in the field, when we have plants that are a little younger and it's still a little bit hard to tell kind of what they are, we put up yellow, like Home Depot landscaping flags next to every plant in that row, so that when it's time to weed, the apprentices are able to very clearly tell, okay, that with the yellow flag, that is not a weed, that's a plant, that stays there, until they gain more of that independence in recognizing those common weeds, things like that. So some funding sources that we utilize in the program. Of course, we are a partner in the USDA New Mexico AgrAbility Project, and so we receive funding through that partnership for the apprenticeship program. I applied for the USDA Beginning Farmers Ranchers program last year, and we received that for this program year for 2024 to 2025 to support with the apprenticeship program. That was under the simplified standard pathway, so that's a one-year funding source. We were hopeful to apply for that for next year, and there has not yet been a new RFP for that program, but fingers crossed that that's something that we'll be able to apply for again in the future. We do also have a funding agreement with the New Mexico Division of Vocational Rehabilitation for the vocational training services that we provide in the program. And so that supports the costs of the program assistance, providing such direct support to our apprentices. This past year, we also applied for and received funding through the New Mexico Department of AgrAbility's Healthy Soils Program for soil remediation at the farm. And we also apply for and receive some grant funding from local foundations here in New Mexico. But this is definitely an area that, as I think many are, trying to get creative about and think about how to diversify this. We are earning some income for the program through direct sales of produce, but it is not quite at the level of being a large source of income for the program yet. But I think that's an area that we're going to keep exploring as well. So some impact of the program so far. We have been really thrilled to be featured at the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Museum down in Las Cruces, New Mexico, as they did an exhibit this year highlighting the New Mexico AgrAbility Project. And so there are several of our apprentices from our last cycle were interviewed as part of that museum exhibit, and their stories are featured in the exhibit. And this slide the picture on the left of this slide shows a picture of our past team and talking about the apprenticeship program at Mandy's farm, and a quote from one of our past apprentices, Isaac, that says, "Everyone works together despite how different all of us are." So that has been really incredible to be able to be highlighted in that exhibit. We were able to bring all of our past apprentices down for the exhibit opening, and their pride in being featured in the museum was just incredibly moving. So that's been a very cool impact to be able to see in real time. We at our graduation in December, some of our apprentices chose to write speeches, and so that's highlighted on this middle picture. One of our past apprentices, Gabe, wrote, "I really enjoyed being a part of AgrAbility. The people I have met are my family. I will miss seeing them in the farm every day. At my Ironwood internship, I liked spending time outside and with the farmers. We've gone on lots of field trips and had lots of good times. I have learned a lot about farming, like how I don't like sandburrs, which is a prickly weed in New Mexico. AgrAbility has been really great, and I want to thank my friends, daughters, and family for supporting my journey." So that's, impact right from one of our apprentices himself. On the right hand of the screen is a photo of another one of our graduates, Alejandro, at his new job. And so he is now working as a landscaper at one of the high-end hotels here in Albuquerque. And he has just been loving his job. He's been so successful. We have folks working now at a greenhouse here in Albuquerque, at a compost facility here in Albuquerque. It's just been really incredible to see our graduates in their new jobs and how happy and successful they are. And they're all still best friends. So that's a huge impact as well, as just that community piece and connection. We have had a lot of big changes in our program. On the left is a picture of what the field looked like when we first started the apprenticeship program, and it was tumbleweeds and goat heads and really had been fallow for over a decade. So we had a lot of work ahead of us, and our apprenticeship crew was just very much up to the challenge, and they really were the ones that took the lead on helping remediate that field and getting it back into production. And on the right shows what the field looks like now. And we are growing all kinds of things right now. The team was very ambitious this summer, and so we have cabbage and peppers and beans, corn, squash, melons, tomatoes, herbs, collard greens. Okra, sweet potatoes. So they're doing really well. Very proud of all of the work they've done. And to go from having our apprentices down on the left, in the program, to on the right, we've got a photo from our graduation ceremony where our students got to really proudly show all of the hard work that they've completed. This is a sneak preview of a project that we are almost finished with. So the curriculum that we designed to go through with the apprentices, that goes through introductory agricultural topics, and we have been working with the New Mexico State University to turn our curriculum into a digital curriculum that folks then will be able to access from anywhere. So we are extremely close to being finished with this and being able to launch, and we'll be really excited to share this with folks. Just some challenges, every project has learning curves, and for anyone out there that's interested in starting something similar and wondering, what are some challenges that could come up. I think, funding is always something that programs are thinking about and being creative about, especially right now. And so, just ensuring sustainable funding for the program so that we can continue to grow and thrive. Stigma, there is still a lot of misunderstanding and myths about folks with disabilities broadly, folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There's a lot of stigma about farming as a career still. And then sometimes when those things converge, there's even more misconceptions about, we hear sometimes of, well, can they do that work? Or, are they able to be farmers? Or, is that appropriate kind of thing? And I hope that our apprentices are helping change the narrative that, yes, they can. And they're wonderful farmers. And anyone would be lucky to have them. And, that sometimes goes into, when we're working on those employment placements at the end of program is doing some education in the community about what we do and who our folks are and what they're capable of. Soil remediation, we still have a long road to go on this for our field space, and education is the forefront of the program and that vocational training, and folks, want to be learning in a productive space. And so having to balance the soil remediation work that we're doing in that field space to get us to a healthy place and be able to produce more is sometimes a balance. Zoning was kind of an unexpected challenge that came up throughout this program, where there was some confusion in the neighborhood about what we were doing there, what our program was, and sometimes with new things, there can be some hesitancy, and so there were some concerns brought up about whether we were operating within our agricultural zoning, which allows, agricultural workers and agricultural training to be happening. And so there was, some discussions that we had to have with the county, which resulted in us pursuing a conditional use permit just to be very much ensuring that we were operating well within our limits there. And since doing so, everything has been operating very smoothly. But for anyone out there considering replicating something similar in their area, definitely having early and often conversations with your neighbors in that neighborhood and making sure everyone knows what's going on. I think that is something that we learned through this process. So challenges are just, learning moments, and that's what we tell our apprentices too. And so, that's okay. But overall, just very proud to be able to speak a little bit to y'all today about what we're doing here. I would love to see sites like this, programs like this, replicate all across the country. I think there's so much need and opportunity. We hear it constantly here in New Mexico about whether there's opportunity to, expand across the state. And so, I'm happy to answer any questions or brainstorm after the call if anyone is curious about doing something similar. I think, training that next generation of farmers is so critical. And so being creative about how we do that and providing some more supports to folks that are interested in that is really important. So I'm going to stop my share and ask for any questions.
Thank you, Sophie. That was a great presentation. There were a couple of comments that your logo is awesome, especially love the detail of the three sisters and what an impressive change. There is one question: how many apprentices do you work with at a time?
Yeah, and thank you to folks in the chat. We have 6 apprentices currently. We have the capacity to serve about 10 per cohort. And we had a little bit of some delays in things with getting funding agreements for some of the folks that were interested for this cohort due to some delays with the voc rehab folks, but we are hopeful that we are going to be able to get them into our next cycle.
Carrie says she has several questions. Do you want me to unmute you, Carrie, or do you want to just type them in the? I can. Or you could unmute yourself, I guess. Go ahead and unmute if you want, Carrie. Oh, it's not allowing. Yeah, I couldn't either. Okay. It says, what have your graduating class members done in the farming space since graduation?
Yeah, and Carrie, do you mean like have they come back to the farm site where we have the apprenticeship program and continued any farming at the site? So like what are they up to now? Yeah, so we have supported folks into community agricultural placements. So we have someone working at a greenhouse. We have someone doing landscaping for a local hotel. And we have 2 folks at a compost facility. And then we have a few who are wanting to take a break right now and want to come back to talking about employment in a little bit, which, I think is also very understandable and something that we hadn't totally considered in our first round of apprenticeship. Maybe naively, I just, everything is new when it's new. And, I know when I graduated with my degree after studying farming for 4 years, I needed a break too, and that's okay. And so we have some folks that, we're still in connection with. They're still doing regular community activities with us at Mandy's. And so we're going to revisit that conversation in a little bit. Yeah, good question. What are our current apprentices hoping to do after graduation? We're trying to suss out some of that right now too. So they just started in March. So they're pretty green. But something we've noticed is this new group seems to have a really large interest in cooking and value-added products. So that's very interesting. That's great. And so we're trying to really lean into that. Like I know today they are making garlic skate pesto, and we're going to package it and sell it at the farmers market this Saturday. We also just harvested a bunch of apples and are creating apple butter tomorrow and dehydrated apple slices. So yeah, we're trying to lean into their interests, and every group is kind of different. Like last cycle, we had a lot of animal folks that really wanted to work with animals. This year, yeah, folks are very into that kind of post-harvest. So, more to explore there. And we're thinking about for their year 2, there is another local program in Albuquerque called the Three Sisters Kitchen that does a food business training program. So we're sort of in early conversations about whether some of our folks might want to do some of their time next year at the food business training program and kind of align with their own personal plots at the farm, growing some things for product and selling those and helping them get a business started. I see a question about farm safety and different activities and their future employers. That's cool. That would be, I would love to do a training with the future employers about talking about farm safety. Other recommendations. Yes, let me think about that a little bit. We do a lot around farm safety. So I'm going to think about that question a little bit, Whitney. Current cohort. Samantha asked about interactions past graduates and if they've interacted with a new one. We are wanting to do that. So right now we're planning like an end of summer kind of barbecue at the farm for our past folks to meet our current folks. And then, yeah, that's something that we are talking about too is bringing back our past apprentices to like lead classes or workshops with the new group, because I think that mentorship cycle is super important. Yeah. And Whitney, I'm writing down your questions so that I won't forget to come back to you, but I just let's see. Hera, that's awesome that you guys are launching something in Florida. That is wonderful. Let me know if you guys have any questions about VR specific stuff as you're getting more into that. We do have an intake and screening process to help make sure it's a good fit. So we have an interest form, and so folks will submit a form. From there, then myself or one of the other staff will reach out. And then we kind of do a phone screening first and talk through all the things and make sure we're talking about the same thing. And then we invite them to come down to the farm, see the farm space, talk to our staff, get to see what a day is like. From there, we sometimes have kind of like a third round that happens. Sometimes it's very clear from the start that like there's an alignment of interest and motivation and all of those things. Sometimes they're a little unsure or we're a little unsure still, and so then we'll invite them to do like a full day shadow where they just come to the program for a day and do the program with us, and so we can really see like how they're jiving at program. Did we lose any apprentices during the first cycle? Yes, we did. We started with 9, and we did lose 2 apprentices in that first cycle. And then Carrie. Oh, I love that question, Carrie. Yeah, happy Disability Pride Month. What do I wish the wider agricultural industry knew or understood about disability and or people with disabilities? It's going to sound really basic, but just like being open-minded, like just giving folks an opportunity and really just listening to what they're telling you. If someone is saying like, this is what I want to do and this is what I'm interested in, I believe that, and we're going to give it a try. I try to really not have any preconceived notions about, what someone's going to be able to do. So I just wish folks would be open to giving it a try. Okay, sounds good, Whitney, because I'm thinking I might just send you like some examples of our safety lesson plans because we have some of that. Um, Josephine's asking, can you talk us through a day in the program for the first year? How many hours is classroom time? Would you share your curriculum? Yeah, totally. So a day in the program in year one. So we are running 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tuesday through Friday. If we could start earlier, we would because it is so hot in New Mexico right now. But that seems to be the sweet spot for making sure folks are on time. So we start the day with an emotional check-in. And so we have like a mood board essentially, and every apprentice has like a name tag on there, and the staff do too. And then we have a whole box of like emotion visuals. And so we do a little, how are folks feeling this morning? Oh, I'm coming in tired, and you can put your tired face next to your name. And then we kind of have a read of like, you might need some more breaks today or something. And then we go through the whole schedule for the day, so that big whiteboard that I had in the slides, and go through all the tasks and talk through what the agenda is. Then we all do a group stretch circle. And this is it's such a small thing, but it really helps build community and teamwork as well as farm safety, and it helps us be safe without it being, I think it seems less like a chore. It seems more fun to do the stretch circle. It's kind of, sometimes we'll have check-ins about like what you did over the weekend, or make it kind of silly, and everyone has to lead a stretch, and then everyone else copies that, and it goes around the circle. And so it also just gives them that kind of basic confidence in being able to be in a circle with folks and do a movement. Like, a lot of folks come in very shy. And then, by the end of year one, they're like, oh yeah, that's Sandra's stretch, or that's, Joey's stretch, or whatever. And then we get out into, well, if it's the summer, then after stretch, we get out into the field, and we make sure to do all our field work before lunch. We always start with weeding, and then we move on to different projects. And then we have lunch all together. And then we would, if it was a summer day, end the day in the classroom with a lesson. There's usually kind of like a theme for the week. Like last week, I know they were doing pest ID. And so every day was kind of centered around, a different common pest and identifying them, and, methods of pest control and things like that. Fridays, we get ready for the farmer's market, and Saturday we have the farmer's market, and we rotate apprentices to come to the market so that they get a feel for doing that. So usually Fridays we'll also have a little bit of market practice, or like counting change, or things like that. And then we can absolutely once that NMSU curriculum is launched, I am sending it to the listserv with AgrAbility, and we'll be so stoked to be able to share that with folks. And then Samantha asked if there's any fun examples of what folks have grown in their personal pots at the farm. Last year everyone wanted to do tomatoes and peppers. They can choose anything. I mean, truly, we have they all got to have some input on what we're growing at the farm right now for year one. And so it's not personal plots, but they got to have input. And so we have a little experimental half row of garbanzo beans. We'll see, we have an experimental row of quinoa, another interesting experiment. We'll see, but we like the apprentices to have a lot of input in what gets grown, because A, that's way more fun, and B, they're able to get a wide variety of knowledge on different crops, because a lot of the small farms in Albuquerque are very diverse mixed vegetable production, and so that hopefully gives them some of that experience too that would be helpful at other farms.
I had a question for both you and Tess. This is Paul. And we became familiar last year with the Care Farming Network. And so my question to you, Sophie, is, are you guys involved with the Care Farming Network? And then Tess, I know you participated in the Care Farming Network conference. And do you see parallels between what Care Farming is doing and what Sophie's farm is doing? Because I wasn't familiar with exactly what Care Farming was doing.
Let's go ahead, Sophie. You can go first if you want.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We did get connected to Care Farming Network. So it's funny, we had been following their newsletter and social media for years at Mandy's. And then they reached out to us before the conference this year and said that they saw that we would be there, and that they were interested in connecting more. And so actually they came up to Mandy's farm the day after the conference, and I was able to give them a tour, and we chatted for a while. And so that's been a really cool connection because, yeah, there's a lot of alignment. And we are helping do some prep for their next conference too. So.
Oh, great. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, Joe Beth and I did attend their conference this past January, and we found out about it a little bit later. We were able to do what they call a lightning session, which basically was like a 10-15 minute session during one of the breaks, to let people know about AgrAbility, and we're hoping to put in a full proposal for a session this year. But yeah, there were lots of other farms similar to what Sophie is doing at Mandy's farm, all over the country. And it was really great to connect with a bunch of, people there. And so I'm really excited to go back again this year and spread some more word about AgrAbility too. Yeah. So yeah, and if anybody's interested, it's carefarming.org, I believe, is the website. But if you just Google Care Farming Network, you should come up with it.
I put it in the chat too.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Paul. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Sophie, for sharing all of that information. Obviously, there's lots of interest and some great questions that came out of the presentation. So if anybody wants to join us, our next session is August 20th at 3 p.m. It is about smartphone accessibility for low vision, and Ned Stoller and Jason Barber will be presenting that session. So, all right.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I put my email in the chat if anyone wants to connect. And Whitney definitely can send you some stuff. So thank you all again.
Great. And don't forget to fill out the survey questions when you exit the Zoom. All right. Thank you, everyone.